The movie begins by showing a girl named Zoe who has just inherited a car from her late father. Zoe is known to be a girl with special needs or speech impairment, so she must use sign language to communicate. Long story short, one day, when Zoe was going to go to meet her boyfriend in an area that was quite far away, the mother doubted her daughter's intentions, especially seeing Zoe's condition that had limitations. Even so, Zoe remained enthusiastic and did not want to make her shortcomings an excuse for not being able to live like normal people. Seeing the spirit of her daughter, who was full of energy, the mother was worried, but inevitably had to let her go.
I've been crying all day on the disaster.
The next day, Zoe left alone using the car she had just gotten. And while on the way, Zoe had time to tell her boyfriend named Dane. It seems that this man is a man who does not look at women from their physicality as evidence that they look very much in love with each other. Back to Zoe, who is still on the road. Not forgetting every few kilometers, she always captures the moment and sends it to her boyfriend. While Dane himself began to clean and prepare his house to welcome the arrival of his beloved lover. But when Zoe drove and her eyes focused on the cell phone, there was a man who was in the middle of the road, and it almost made her hit the man. Fortunately, Zoe immediately slammed the steering wheel and managed to avoid the man. However, when Zoe looked to the side, suddenly a gang of gangsters came who were chasing another man using a pickup truck. Not only did they chase, they also boldly ran over the poor man mercilessly. Zoe, who saw the incident, immediately backed up her car and decided to save the man she almost hit. Although the man had refused and told Zoe to leave immediately, Zoe, who could not bear it, still helped him and put the man in his car. But unfortunately, Zoe did not have time to escape because the gang of gangsters had surrounded her. Without saying a word, one of them immediately killed the man who was in Zoe's car by blindly stabbing a knife.
Should be a commandment.
Come on. Fucking dead.
Now.
Zoe was so scared she tried to escape by running, but one of them named Trey managed to shoot one of Zoe's legs. Then the gang took her to a place like a warehouse far from the city. After that, they began to tie Zoe using razor wire, and they began to rape Zoe in turn. While at Dane's house, he also began to worry because until now his girlfriend had not arrived. Then Dane again checked the photo sent by Zoe. If you look at the photo that Zoe sent last, his girl should have arrived. Therefore, Dane immediately contacted the local police to find Zoe's whereabouts. Long story short, night fell, and Trey, the depraved man, began to show Zoe the skulls of the people he kept in the refrigerator. Then he told her that Trey's family used to be hunters for the Indians, who were the original inhabitants of America. And the two people they killed earlier also looked like they were Indians. After that, Trey and his friend named West began to make a bet, which if Trey won, Trey would have Zoe completely, and he was free to want to do anything to her. And vice versa, if West won, then West would have Zoe completely.
She don't show where she was heading.
I win. I get to keep her.
While in the room where Zoe was kept, she recalled the good times with her boyfriend on the beach. From that memory instantly made Zoe emotional until she pulled her hand so that it could be released from its bonds. But Zoe's hand had to be torn quite badly because she forced her hand to get out of the barbed wire bonds. In the previous place, West finally managed to win the bet, and now Zoe will be his. When Zoe tried to get out of the place, West happened to see Zoe, who had escaped from her bonds. Then West immediately chased her and managed to catch Zoe back. After that, he immediately stabbed her, using a dagger right in Zoe's stomach. And in the end, Zoe had to die. The next day, Dane, who never got information about the whereabouts of his girlfriend from the police, decided to look for her directly. While on the other hand, a man named Gray, who was an Indian at that time, he was hunting with his dog, and at that time he also found the body of Zoe, who had been buried in the ground with terrible conditions. Of course, seeing this situation, Gray immediately took Zoe out of the ground and brought her to his place of residence.
Drink.
At night, Gray performed an Indian ritual to call back the spirit of Zoe because she was killed by people who hunted the Indians. But what came instead was not only the spirit of Zoe, but the spirit of an Indian ancestor who had great power also came and entered Zoe's body so that Zoe's body could levitate and even hit Gray until it fell. Good luck, Gray can handle it with his spell that makes Zoe's body calm again. Shortly thereafter, when she realized Zoe immediately left Gray's place without saying goodbye. After walking to and fro, she finally found a payphone and immediately contacted her boyfriend Dane. But after successfully contacting Dane, Zoe, who we know cannot speak, makes it difficult for Dane to know where his girlfriend is now. Therefore, Dane told Zoe to stay there and not go anywhere. Then Dane hung up the phone because he had to immediately call the operator to find out the location of the public telephone used by Zoe. Not long after came a sheriff in the city. Look how happy Zoe is in the hope of asking him for help. But it turns out that the sheriff is Jed, who is Trey's brother, and he is also one of the perpetrators of the Indian hunt. Instantly, the Indian spirit in Zoe's body reappeared, and she entered the bar. Without saying much, Zoe immediately killed Jed by stabbing him with a drink bottle. Not enough to stab him, Zoe also pulled Jed's intestines out of his stomach. Two people who were in the bar were also killed for trying to resist. After knowing the whereabouts of the public telephone number used by Zoe, Dane finally came directly to the location, but there were already many police officers who secured the bar. Then he asked and explained to one of the sheriffs that he was looking for his girlfriend, but the sheriff replied that no woman was a victim in the bar, but instead the killer or culprit was a woman. Hearing the news, Dane, of course, did not believe that Zoe did it because he had known Zoe for a long time. Of course, she couldn't possibly do something bad like this. Even to hurt a fly, she couldn't do it. Not long after Trey and his friends came to the location to see the dead brother, he was very angry and would look for the culprit. Then Dane began to ask them and asked if any of them had seen the existence of women like in the poster. The point is that Dane asked for help and would pay them to find the whereabouts of Zoe. But West refused to help Dane because he realized that his group was the mastermind of the kidnapping and murder of Zoe. Dane, who still wanted to ask questions and ask for help, finally made West very angry, and it almost caused a commotion. Fortunately, a moment later came a sheriff who managed to break them all up and immediately secured Dane into his car. The next day, Zoe woke up in a hut, and in that place, Zoe found several tools such as grass scissors and an arrow. Instantly making the spirit in Zoe's body intend to use the arrow to take revenge. On the other hand, Trey and his colleagues began to visit the location where Zoe was buried, and it turned out that Zoe's body was no longer there. They all felt confused because Wes still remembered that he had really killed her there. And in the end, because they all now began to feel threatened, they intended to leave the area.
West, why didn't you scout? That ain't the work of a gut eater. I don't know what.
Sure, Trey.
Trey and some of his friends first eliminated all the evidence and disposed of it in a place, while Creed started packing things in his house. But when he was about to leave, Creed was shocked to see that his car tire was flat and stuck with several arrows. Because of fear, he also tried to call Trey. Unfortunately, Trey did not hear the phone call because at that time he was busy removing evidence. And soon Zoe appeared from behind while carrying an arrow in her hand. Without thinking, Zoe immediately killed Creed in a brutal way.
Please. Wait, no.
Dane, who was devastated by what happened to his girlfriend, could only brood and cry in his motel room because he didn't know what to do anymore. And he was also very sorry for not being able to take care of the lover he loved so much. It turned out that Zoe was also there while listening to the cries of Dane, but Zoe did not want to show her sad condition to Dane. When Dane was in the bathroom, he saw on the glass there was an inscription, "Please forget," and at a glance, Dane also saw Zoe, who was in front of her house. But when going out suddenly, Trey and his friends were already there and immediately beat Dane unconscious.
Angel! Yeah! We got your boy!
Then they took away Dane from the motel And when one of Trey's friends named Cody intended to get into the car, suddenly he was hit by an arrow from behind right on his neck. Seeing Zoe's presence there, Trey immediately stepped on the gas while carrying Dane. And Zoe, who did not just give up, she ran after the car and finally managed to climb into their car. Then afterwards, Zoe attacked West, and the fight scene in the car was inevitable. Long story short, in the fight, Zoe had managed to overthrow West, but when she was about to kill him, suddenly Trey stepped on the brake pedal, making Zoe fall to the road. Without thinking, Trey immediately ran over Zoe with his car, but Zoe did not die just like that. She could still get up and seemed to have no pain at all in her body, but instead Zoe cried while screaming because she could not save her boyfriend. Trey and his friends who saw it could only be confused and scared, because now Zoe was not like an ordinary person anymore. Even because he was too afraid, Trey had to hire mercenaries with complete weaponry just to kill Zoe. While Zoe herself was seen, she was already in the yard where Gray lived. Then she connected her own hand, which was almost broken, using the tip of an arrow as a substitute for the severed bone, and after that she duct taped her hand. Not only his hands on Zoe's torn stomach, she also put sand and some garbage maybe, so that his stomach was solid. Shortly thereafter appeared the ancestral spirit of the Indian tribe, who gave Zoe a dagger, axe, and sacred necklace. Zoe's strength seemed to get stronger after getting some of these items. Now Dane has become a prisoner of Trey and his group. Because Cody could not stand the arrow stuck in his neck, he quietly left the headquarters driving his friend's car to go for further treatment. But only a few meters into the trip, suddenly Zoe appeared in front of him while carrying a spear. Cody, who saw Zoe in front of him, immediately increased the speed of his car in the hope of crashing into Zoe. But Zoe managed to kill Cody first by sticking her spear right into Cody. As a result, the car driven by Cody was rolled over. And now Zoe will face Trey and some of his mercenary friends. With the help of the ancestral spirit of the Indian tribe, Zoe managed to kill one by one of them brutally. Even Zoe had time to take Wes's heart and then eat it in front of Trey. After seeing a suddenly strong Zoe while saying "walk in hell," here Trey just realized that Zoe had been possessed by the spirit of the Indian tribe, and not long after came a sheriff to the place. Of course, he used the opportunity to escape from there, where Trey pretended to be afraid while running towards the sheriff. Then suddenly Trey immediately shot the sheriff so that he could escape. After successfully escaping, Trey immediately went to Gray's residence, where the goal was to find out how to stop Zoe. When he got there, Trey immediately threatened Gray by pointing his gun, but Gray also didn't know how to stop Zoe. He only told him that maybe burying some skulls that Trey kept in the refrigerator could remove the Indian ancestral spirit from Zoe's body. It turns out that the skulls are victims of Trey and his family's cruelty. After finding out how Trey returned home to take the skulls he kept to be buried immediately, but in a moment Trey realized there was one skull missing, and it turned out that the skull was already in the hands of Zoe. With the situation already cornered, inevitably Trey had to fight Zoe, and he used a chainsaw as a weapon.
And it turned it.
And in the end, Zoe managed to cut off one of Trey's arms and stab several parts of his body so that Trey had to fall. Although with one remaining hand, Trey had thrust the chainsaw into Zoe's stomach, but for Zoe it was nothing. Zoe immediately hit Trey's neck using her axe until finally Trey had to die on the spot. Not long after Dane came to the place, and how shocked he was when he saw Zoe, who was still alive, but with a body condition that had been cut in half. And at that moment, Dane also saw Zoe trying to bury herself. Seeing Zoe's condition that could not be saved, Dane finally decided to help Zoe so that she would not be tormented anymore by burning Zoe, and Zoe could die in peace. Before being burned, Zoe said in sign language that she loved Dane very much, and Dane replied that he also loved Zoe very much. Then Dane started dousing Zoe using gasoline and started burning her using an electric lamp, and finally now Zoe could go in peace. And the movie ends. Thank you for watching. See you in the next movie. Don't forget